Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yep, I can see it.
Yep, I can see it.
Can you see these people too? I wonder if I can close this. Okay. And get rid of that. Did that work? Nope. There we go. Okay, yay. All right. Welcome, everyone. So this is NARN's Speak Up for Animals by Lobbying Your Elected Representatives, an intro to the Washington State Legislature. Okay, and we just want to welcome everyone. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and to help us foster an inclusive space, we'd like to just take a moment and acknowledge and welcome the diversity of all of our volunteers and the people joining us today. And we love to see everyone's engagement in the chat. So to help each of us know who's who on the call and for attendance, please take a moment right now if you'd like to edit your name to your first and last name. And if you'd like, you can include your pronouns on that as well. So to edit your name, you move your cursor over the thumbnail, over your thumbnail image, and you'll see 3 dots that will open up a menu, and it says rename there, so you can go ahead and do that. And then in the chat box, we'd like to hear from you about what other aspects of our diversity you'd like us to welcome into this space. And if you cannot hear or see during the presentation, please let us know, and we will do our best to adjust this during the presentation. Here we go. So for all of our events, we have an anti-harassment policy, and this is for all of our events, whether it be in person or virtually. And it's just to ensure that we make all of NARN's events as safe spaces as we can. So we have other policies, excuse me, we have other policies on our website that you are welcome to go look at after the presentation. And then, where's my cursor? Here we go. And even though we are virtual, we like to offer a land acknowledgement for all of our events. And so NARN is based in Seattle, and we like to acknowledge that we occupy the indigenous land of the traditional territory of the Coastal Salish Seas people, specifically the Duwamish tribe. And we've included a link here called Real Rent Duwamish, which you can go check out on your own time. It's pretty interesting. It's kind of a way of paying rent to live on the land that we occupy. And so let's see, hang on, sorry, cursor, there we go. And so one of the reasons that I bring up this land acknowledgement and why it's pertinent is because Washington wasn't even considered a state until 1889. And so that means that there have been people, and there still are people who have lived on this land before Washington was even a state, before the legislature even existed. And so we think it's important to acknowledge this and also bring up the fact that historically bills that were introduced and laws that were passed in the legislature hasn't always favored the people who have lived here on this land. And so with that said, we can go into our presentation as soon as I find my cursor. Here we go. And what we're going to be talking about today is multiple things, basically how to navigate the Washington legislature. We'll be talking about how to find out who your House representative and your senator are, what issues they care about, and what committees they will be serving on this session. And then we'll be talking about what bills will be moving through the session or are moving through the session right now. And then we'll end leaving plenty of time for Q&A in case you have any specific questions that may come up during the presentation. And so with that, I will turn it over to Rachel. Oh, who I forgot to introduce. I'm sorry. This is Rachel. Rachel is our board president.
Steph, I don't think you introduced yourself. Steph is our program manager.
Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Sorry.
And she does a phenomenal job. Honestly, she's a lifesaver. She put together these slides. I did not. Okay. Anyway, enough about that. One of the things that I find super helpful when looking into legislature is actually the Washington State Legislature website. Yes, that's very true. And so I'm going to just put a link here in the chat about how you get to the district finder page, because your first step is finding out who represents you. And you can just go to this link that we put up here about district finder, and you put in your address and all that, and it'll show you what district you are, the number, like I'm in the 36th, and your representatives. And then it should have a link to each of them, which can then lead you to their contact information and their websites. So you want to make sure to look at that, and that way you know who it is and you have their contact information. Okay, next slide. So when you get that information, find out their website and their contact information, you can then reach out to them via email, or you can call them on the phone or send them. Almost all of them have Facebook pages. I mean, they have social media these days. They pretty much are out there on whatever platform there is. So you can reach out to them and let them know that you are a constituent and about what issues you care about. And when you reach out to them, it doesn't necessarily have to be long, because it's pretty much their staff that are reading these emails or listening to phone calls and stuff like that and compiling them and sending them to the actual representative. But they do listen to what you are saying because they represent you. That is their job. And it really, I've found in my own experience of speaking to my representatives, is they honestly do care about what you care about. And they get so much information in any kind of legislative session that they don't know everything. So oftentimes they are relying on their constituents to educate them about things that are happening. The current bill that is there's one of the bills that is before the legislature right now is about, animals trying to stop animals from being sold at pet stores. And it was these young women that had found out about how these animals come from puppy mills and stuff like that, and they were very concerned about the issue. So they reached out to their representatives to say, hey, this is a concern to me. I really want you to get behind this bill. And they champion the issue with the help of Posados and the HSUS. But my cat, that they love to glom on to stuff like that. They love these stories about kids worrying about cats and dogs and things like that. So it is important. And during the legislative session, they probably won't respond to your email right away, or if they do, it'll be like a form letter. But it's just because they don't have time. They do read them. They just don't have time to get back to you. So before and after legislative sessions, they're more liable to be in, like, say, personal contact with you. But just don't be discouraged if you don't get responses from them, because they're so busy. I've often, when I've gone to town halls, I've often said, hey, you don't ever respond to my emails, but they're like, no, we read them. We just really can't respond to them right now. So don't feel like you're being ignored, please. When you do reach out to them, it is really, really helpful that you know what you're talking about. So having some facts behind you, getting statistics, all of that, talk about why it's important to you. It does help to have a personal story. Like if you had an experience, say that I don't think anybody here has done that, but purchased a dog from a pet store and then they got really sick, you could talk about how your personal bad experience with that. Or there's another bill that is being proposed to kill seals and sea lions. You could talk about how magical you find seals or sea lions, or you could talk about how seals and sea lions are also an important part of the diet of orcas. You know, these are things that they can then use when they are supporting these bills that you care about, or these issues, or if they find out that one of their fellow representatives is, say, sponsoring a bill that is about animals, then they can, like, oh, well, I'd like to support this because I've had all these constituents contact me. And those individual emails or phone calls or tweets or whatever, they do make a big difference, because they are so used to getting these form letters from larger organizations that they know when a person takes the time to reach out to them instead of just do the like click and send kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with doing those click and send petition kind of things, but if you can follow up with your own actual email or whatever form of communication you prefer, they kind of, that gets more points per se, because they know that you took the time on your own to send them a separate communication. So I would really encourage you to do that. And if they contact you, or if they're supporting the bill you care about, to send them a thank you, because they get a lot of people yelling at them and don't like what they do. So if you can take the time to say, I really appreciate you supporting this bill, then that's an extra thing for them to remember you by. Okay, next slide. Did I miss anything, Steph? If I did,
No.
Okay, so a lot of larger organizations, they put together these lobby days. I participated in a few. HSUS does one. PCRM, the Physicians for Responsible Medicine, does one. I've participated in others that other groups put on, and they are really great to be involved in if you can, because they put together all these talking points. They'll put together a list of bills that they want you to talk about, and then they help you set up a meeting with your representative to specifically talk about these things. I participated in one that was put on by PCRM, and this was for a national bill. And so I had a couple of Zoom meetings with my reps, and it wasn't the actual rep. You're going to be talking to their staff for most of the part, especially in these virtual days. But I was a little nervous at first, but it was really great talking to them, and they asked questions, and they honestly seemed really interested in the topic. And they said it was helpful to them to be able to take that information back to their representatives. So if you can, I would highly encourage you to try and participate in these lobby days, because it kind of helps you get more familiar with what's going on. And it's another time where you would be able to contact your representative. Okay, next slide. All right, another thing to keep in mind is the process for how a bill becomes a law. And I don't know about anybody else, but I distinctly remember those Schoolhouse Rock ads, not ads, but PSAs about I'm just a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill. So the bill first get introduced, and they're by a individual representative or senator, and then there can be co-sponsors and things like that. And then the first step is to go to a committee hearing, and they'll get assigned a committee. And then at the committee, they will discuss the bill, and they may or may not pass it. If they don't pass it, it's dead for that year. It's done. It doesn't mean it can't be revived for next year, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't still contact your rep to let them know you care about that bill, because they'll make note of it. But I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time, because it's not going to go anywhere this year if it doesn't pass out of committee. And it's also just another opportunity to, when it is going to have that committee hearing, for you to make sure that you let your rep know it's really important, like pass it out of the committee. You can contact the other committee members to let them know that you want them to pass the bill, or don't pass if it's a bill we don't like, because it's like, if it doesn't make it past that first step, like I said, it's dead in the water for the year. Then if it does get out of the committee, it'll go to a floor vote. And if it, gets out of the House or the Senate or whichever house it's in. If it does make it out of there, then it will go to it'll go to the other one, basically, unless it was amended, which happens, and then it will go back to have voted on again. If it passes all of that, then it will go to the governor, who hopefully will sign it or not, depending on if we don't like it. And at that point, it becomes a law. Do you want to add anything to that stuff?
Well, I guess I would just say that, a bill could be introduced that has a lot of teeth at the beginning. And then through the committee hearings, a lot of amendments can be added that basically whittles away a lot of the bite. And so you can see a completely, well, not completely, but largely different bill that comes out of it than what was originally introduced. It's always interesting to see that. So it's very important to pay attention to the various amendments that get added as well. So
yeah, thank you. I remember there was a amendment that was introduced on the retail sales of cats and dogs, and fortunately it did not get voted. It didn't make it, but it would have significantly watered down that bill. You're right. Yeah, that's a big concern.
And I guess the only other thing I would say is I was going to say you don't see this at the state level so much, but that's not true. You actually do. Oftentimes there can be something attached to a bill, like a budget proposal that can make it. You can attach a budget proposal to a bill that it has nothing to do with that budget, but sometimes it will get added as extra pressure to pass the bill because everyone wants to see that budget passed. There's a lot of tricky things that can be done in the legislature. My point is, it's really important to pay attention to the bill as it moves through the House and the Senate, because then you may change your tone and you may decide you want to vote against it because you want your representative to vote against it because it was not the bill that was introduced.
Yeah, that is very true.
Writers is what they're called. I was trying to think.
Oh, right.
Writers.
I do see that less in Washington State, thankfully, but you're right, and that happens a lot at the national level. They get sneaky with stuff like that.
Yeah, and also at the state level, you'll see, politicians are going to politician, and they, will trade bills as well. If that means what that means is they may sign on to something that they actually don't care that much about. If that means that someone else will pass or vote for a bill that they're interested in. It's very convoluted.
Yeah. And it is also like, it can take particular bills a really long time to get through this process. Like years ago, there was a bill to ban the ownership of exotic animals. And it was something that PAWS worked on for many, many years. And they had a lobbyist and everything. And she spent, like I said, years getting this bill through the legislature. And the current bill about banning the retail sales of cats and dogs, that's been something they've been trying to get done for a while, Posados and HSUS. So, hopefully it'll pass this year because it has gotten further, but it's also been significantly watered down, which is probably the reason why it will pass. But if something doesn't get voted on in a particular year, don't lose hope. That's kind of par for the course. That's what happens, and it does take a long time, unfortunately, for things to get through, unless there's like a huge tidal wave of public pressure. for a particular bill. Like a lot of the bills for police reform were able to get through this year, fortunately, because of the public pressure on them. So
Yeah, how many years did it take for that that coyote derby contest to get banned? Wasn't that, it was like 3 years or something?
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly, but yeah, it probably did take a while.
Yeah, and it's still, that same bill is I think it's in its either third or fourth year in Oregon. So last year Washington passed it, luckily, which was a huge lift, and then hopefully Oregon will pass it this year. But yeah, as Rachel said, you know, it can sometimes take years.
And you can find bills by searching on this page there. And then once you find the bill, it's kind of, it'll show you like the status of any particular bill. So you can see whether it's when it was introduced, you can see when it's in committee, and then when it's on any particular floor. And then you can have a chance to comment on the bill. The Washington State Legislature website makes it super easy actually to comment on bills, and this is the way I do it the majority of the time. So you can just click on that comment on a bill box that is circled in red, and then that will take you kind of to a page where you verify your district, and then you can say who you want to get the comment. And I always click all three, even regardless of whether it's a Senate bill or a House bill. I just click all three, and then you say whether you're opposed to it or supportive of it or neutral. I don't know why you comment if you're neutral, but whatever. and then you can write, like, I write generally short comments because I want them to be able to read them and send it off. And I can get through a ton of bills in a short period of time just by going to the comment. And then you can also get notifications as to where that bill is, because they have those other things you can sign up for right below the comment, where you can get email notifications or the RSS notifications, and you just sign up there and get notified as to when that bill is going to go before committee. And that's just a super helpful way to find out what's going on with any particular bill. That status page, I think it's I found the Washington State Legislature website actually really great, and it has a lot of helpful information on there. And for this particular session, you know, it also has information about joining virtual committee hearings. So that's also great. Okay. Next slide. All right, so these are some bills that are currently still alive.
Sorry.
Oh,
sorry. Don't know what happened there. Here we go.
These bills are still alive on for this session anyway. And so you can sign up for updates on these or to look them up. And I would encourage everybody to actually make sure you read the bills so you understand what's in them. And they're generally not very long. Like, most bills are amending some other existing law. So if it is a brand new bill, it's going to be fairly short. So don't feel like you have a whole lot of stuff to read through, but you just want to make sure that you know it's actually in the bill that you are asking them to support or not, because it's, you know, we should know these things. All right, next slide.
I'll just add one thing too. When you go to look up a specific bill, so for example, 5364, so this will be called SB 5364, just like House Bill 1038 will be called HB. That's what that means, if you see that come up. And when you're looking for it, you'll see there's a title here, and then there's a short description is what it's called. So you can oftentimes tell what the bill is about just from the description or from the title, but there is a section that has the whole full text of the bill if you want to read everything that's included, but it's not always necessary. You can oftentimes just get the gist from the description here. They try to make it easy for you.
Some of the descriptions are a little, like there was this bill that would give money to the horse racing industry, and it was like titled concerning equine. I don't know. It was a really weird title, honestly. And the only reason I found out about it is because I signed up for the Washington Votes updates, and so I read it. I'm like, what the hell? This bill like directly gives money. It taxes horse gear basically, and then all that money, that taxed money stuff that would go towards the horse racing industry. And plenty of people that need to buy supplies for their horses don't really want to support the horse industry. And so I wouldn't have known that had I not read the bill, because sometimes they're really short. But yeah, you can get the gist of it for sure. There's just sometimes stuff hidden within bills that have vague titles that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on. So this website, the Washington Votes org, is how I get a lot of my information and pick up on a lot of bills. It's a really, really useful website. You can sign up. Basically, you have a subscription. It's totally free. They have a bunch of different keywords that you can click on, and you'll get emails about any bills that are introduced in the House or the Senate that have to do with the subject matter that you've indicated. So like, I've signed up for stuff about civil rights and the environment and animals. And so sometimes there'll be bills in there that maybe you don't particularly concern you, but it's better to get like a little more information than a little less. And as they'll like alert you when the legislature is in session, starting to be in session. They'll tell you when bills get introduced. They'll tell you, if a bill has made it out of committee. They'll tell you what amendments get added, and then when it gets voted on. So it's pretty handy website. It's great to you just get a lot of good information from it when the legislature's in session. So I would really recommend anybody that's interested to sign up for this website. And can we put that? Yes, Lauren. Let me put that link in the chat. I meant to go look up that website. Hold on. All right, while I'm doing that, does anybody have questions?
I had a question. I was just wondering, so the Humane Lobby Day that was in 2020, do you know the date for like the next Humane Lobby Day this year? I don't know if it said it, if I put that in the slide.
I think it already happened, didn't it?
Yeah, we the flyer that was up was it was just for the one bill. It was on the 24th, and I'm actually not sure if they ended up having it or not, because I think the bill passed already. So I'm not sure, but usually it's either the Humane League of Washington, or is that right? No, it's
just
there's
the Humane League doesn't have it. Yeah, it's the HSUS.
Okay, and then the HSUS Washington, right?
Yeah.
What am I thinking of? The Washington voter.
Well, the Humane League used to have an office in Washington State, but they don't anymore.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, so if you want to find your lobby days, oftentimes there will be one from HSUS, and then oftentimes they're involved in others. They'll coordinate with other groups. So for example, in Oregon, they're working on a wildlife lobby day this year with a bunch of other organizations. So yeah, oftentimes they'll do their own, and then they'll also team up with other organizations.
Well, thank you so much.
What other questions are there? I know we threw a lot out there.
that bill, the cats and dogs one didn't pass yet. It's on the floor calendar. There's a,
Oh, is it? Okay,
yeah.
okay.
There was a question about donations to your reps. And I can only speak from my personal experience with my representatives in the 36, and I have found them, I've never given them any money, and I've found them responsive to me. So that's all I can say. I mean, I don't know if other reps are different. I think that, you know, you have special interest groups that are able to hire lobbyists. They definitely have better access just because they have like a person working full time to work on particular issues. Whereas, you know, people like you and I, and we're just trying to keep up with this in addition to everything else going on in our lives. But they do want to hear from you. So it certainly is I found it worth my while to reach out to them. And they seem genuinely interested in hearing from the constituents. I mean, back in pre-COVID days, when you had actual town halls, then I could, you know, actually speak to them in person, and they seemed interested. I felt like they were interested in what I had to say, and they seem like genuine human beings, not just politicians, I suppose.
Rachel,
So,
what's a town hall?
oh, sorry. It's so a lot of times particular districts will have like basically a public meeting, and they invite anybody to come and ask questions at those meetings. And so they'll come and basically like give a little presentation about what they're working on. And it's, at least in my district, the 36, we have one senator and 2 representatives. And that, I think that should be standard, I think, for all districts is one. But they'll just do a presentation, and then they'll ask for questions. And then they also, in my district anyway, they have like little meet and greet kind of things, and they'll just hang out, and you can like grab one of them or one of their staff members to talk about issues you care about. That's another reason to sign up, to look at the websites of your representatives, so you can sign up for emails, and then you can find out when they're doing any kind of event where they the public is invited, because that's yet another opportunity for you to talk with them.
Thank you very much. And if I may, is there a weight, you know, WE are some ways more important or more powerful in persuading a representative in terms of, you know, postcards versus letters, mass letters from people versus knocking on the door or whatever, you know what I mean? I guess from what I'm gathering tonight, and I'm sorry I came late, lost my train of thought here.
I think I know what you're saying, though. From what in my experience, and also just talking with the staff of the representatives, is they do place more weight on personal. When you take the time to, you can like call them or email them, as long as it's from you, like personally. But that doesn't mean that those like petitions that come from larger groups usually aren't helpful. I mean, I do both. If I get an alert from a larger group about, you know, please tell your representative about blah blah blah, you know, I'll do those, and then I'll take some time to look up that particular bill and send a quick message about it, and to say like, please oppose this bill, please support this bill, and just a brief like why it's important to me and why I want them to support it or not. So they definitely place more weight on anytime somebody takes the time to personally send a form of communication.
Okay, thank you. You know, I'm gonna take a little more time, couple more questions. During the wildlife hearings about 3 weeks ago, I was shocked that when one particular situation had only 5 letters from the public supporting protection for this particular bird. I mean, I would have thought there would have been more. So that was part of my motivation to be here tonight, was to say, wow, I gotta, you know, there's one more vote here. So
Are you talking about the Fish and Wildlife Committee hearings?
Yeah, I mean, that's a
Yeah,
ballgame.
that's a little different. And I think in the case of that, it just from my perspective is there weren't more letters because it can be hard. Like honestly, prior to this year and COVID, I hadn't really paid attention to what the Fish and Wildlife Commission does. So, I would have been one of those people not commenting. So and that's a whole nother thing to pay attention to. I think that just a lot of people aren't aware of what's going on. At least I wasn't until this time. So it's not that people don't care, it's just that they don't know about it.
Wow, thank you.
And that should be one of the jobs of our elected leaders too, is to share what's going on in what they're working on, and that's one of the places where attending a town hall is a good idea to find out what issues your representative is voting on, is paying attention to. You can also sign up to their email lists, and they will be able to educate you more about what's moving in the session. I will just add a personal story that Rachel mentioned that your representatives love hearing from you. And I would say that that's largely true. It depends on which way they, sway. My congressional representatives are Democrat. And so largely they hear from me saying thank you. My state senator is hard Republican, and he largely votes against all of the things that I care about. And that can be frustrating, and it can feel really pointless to use my voice, but he knows who I am now. He, if I end up, standing out in the, against what most of my community votes for, he's gonna hear what I have to say, maybe more so than what the rest of the group is saying, because I stand out. And when he sees my name on that email, or his staff know me, I've sat down and talked with them, and it's just, I just want to encourage you that if you live in a district that you feel like your voice or your vote won't matter, it does. And oftentimes you'll be the loudest voice. So just
Thank you for that. Even
ringing
if
that
I'm
bell.
not, sorry,
That's okay.
even if I'm not in the particular district, like if I'm not an official constituent, they still want to hear from me, maybe, depending on who they are. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. You are welcome and invited to comment on each of the bills as it passes through the committee. And so they'll have a public comment session during each committee session, and then that is where you can give your comment also. Yeah, so they do want to hear from you largely. Yeah.
Yeah, I also have, mine are more liberal leaning, but when I've had a chance to interact with them in person, like last year, 2 years ago, I went to one because I had been contacting them a bunch and I hadn't heard from them. And I basically gave them bad time for not responding to me. And they were like, oh my God, because I was like, you don't call me, complaining to them. And they're like, oh, I'm really sorry, we'll make sure, we're really busy right now. And so now, they know they can put a name to the face, and they know that I'm usually contacting them about animal bills. It's generally, I was ending up talking to their aides, but they're very upfront. Like, we can't respond to every email. We do read them. We'll get back to you. And it's just nice to kind of have that be listened to, and that they honestly do care. And I had a chance to talk to one of my reps about some of the wolf legislation and let her know my thoughts on it. And she didn't know a lot of the stuff that I was telling her because she hears all this stuff from other people. And she actually did tell me, she goes, you know, a lot of those ranchers over in Eastern Washington, they're really scary. Because I was upset with the way she had voted on a particular bill. And on its face, it looked okay, but if you had like read it and dived deeper into it, it wasn't a great bill. And so I think, you know, if I hadn't taken the time to talk to her about it, then she wouldn't have known. And that's what I mean. They don't know everything, and their legislative aides, a lot of those folks get one aide, at least in Washington State. So they're doing a lot of work with few resources.
Yeah, that's another important note. If you happen to be intimidated talking to your representative, just know that most likely you're going to be talking to their staff person who, you know, their whole job is to take calls from constituents and make sure that they pass the message on to the reps. However,
And can I just say
did
something about that stuff too?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Their staff are pretty overworked as well. So, you know, if you can try and establish a bit of rapport with them and you know, kind of sympathize with their workload a little bit, they tend to be a little bit more receptive to a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. They are overworked. That's a very important point. And I think that was really helpful to me when I was irritated about them not responding to me, was them saying, look, I'm sorry, we'll have to get back to you after the session, we just can't. So that was helpful information for me to know. And also just realize that all of the times that I had been commenting and whatnot was not falling on deaf ears, and they were listening. They just didn't have the time to respond.
Something that we keep touching on, but we haven't actually said it, is relationship building. And I think that is one of the best ways to help animals, especially through the legislature. If you have a relationship with an elected leader or a staff member, you know, and they see you, you know, repeatedly, they hear from you, you're more likely to build rapport. And then, you know, when you come back the next year, they're more likely to listen to you because they recognize you, they know already, you know, what your stance is on issues, and they respect you because you keep coming back. So the first time you reach out, it might seem overwhelming, but once you build a friend in the legislature, and, you know, someone who you can reach out to and say, hey, you know, I'm so-and-so, and I'm, you know, trying to figure out what's going on this session. Like, can you give me, you know, a heads up, you know? And oftentimes they'll have, I mean, these people are the ones who are there every day. They have their fingers on the pulse. They know what's going on, oftentimes before the representative knows, you know, because they do all their scheduling and everything else. So it's really important to, yes, know that they are human, and they work very hard for us, and for the people that we elect. And yeah, I think that, you know, generally they are in it to help. And that's good to know that, you know, we have allies in the legislature.
Yeah. And I've found out that my particular reps also have their own particular interests. One of them is Noelle Frame, and she really is interested in taxes. So like, she will glom on to bills that are about taxes and trying to make our state a fairer taxation, which is a lot, because Washington has some weird rules about taxation. And then my Senator Reuven Carlisle is super interested in like privacy and internet, you know, making sure that like Google doesn't divulge all of your information to everybody and stuff like that. And so he'll glom on to particular bills about that. And then I have a new rep, and I'm not exactly, I haven't picked up yet on what all she's interested in, but yeah, that is helpful.
So, another thing that I will mention is just that when you are contacting these people, we keep saying, they're very, very busy, and they are. And so what's helpful is if you're very direct with what you're trying to get across. So oftentimes I find it's helpful if I'm going in person, I will bring a fact sheet about the issue, which will have the bill number on it. It will have who is introducing it, even though they can look up this information on their own. It's really helpful for them to have just all the information in front of them. And it'll have my talking points on it, so that when I leave, well, first of all, I make sure that I hit on all the talking points. And then when I leave that with them. And so that they have that, on top of their to-do list, and they've got my talking points on it. So, if there's one thing that they remember about this specific bill, I want it to be my fact sheet and my opinions on it. So
yeah, that is such a great point, Steph. Thank you. And we can, I need to do a better job about that. And when I contact my reps, is having that information, and just like, you're right, just be really direct, because they don't have a lot of time to read through like lengthy emails and whatnot.
Yeah, so it can say, I'm so and so. An email can say, I'm so and so. I'm your constituent. I want to talk about this bill. I want you to vote yes.
And these are the reasons why.
And these are the reasons why. Yeah. So if you put it, put your ask out there, first thing, bill title, how I want you to vote. These are the reasons why. Thank you. And then, yeah, that's the quickest, most direct way to do it.
I did notice that we're getting some questions about the Fish and Wildlife Committee. So that's kind of a different thing, but it's also a way of lobbying. I put a link to the commission page on there. Well, I don't want to deviate too much from this. Does anybody else have any questions about the legislation before we touch on the Wildlife Commission? Not that we can't go back.
So I live in Oregon, but I think it's the same in Washington, isn't it? Every other year is a shortened session. So that means that 1 year, the session will go from about for a full session. This session will go from January to about May. Is that right, in Washington? And then for the next year will be a short session, and it's only a couple, like January, February, maybe, to do everything for the entire session. So if you happen to be on a longer session year, you will, or a full session, you will, most likely those are the times when you'll see, in-person lobby days and whatnot. And then the shorter sessions are just really, you have to really know what's going on before the session even starts, because it moves really quickly.
Yeah.
So, just to know about that.
And when we have the, how a bill becomes a law, it's super important to like really hit them when it, like, as it's getting to committee, because if it doesn't make it out of the committee, then it's done for the year. So if you can take a lot of time to make sure that, let the committee, people that are on the committee know you care about it, let your reps know about you care about it, you want it out of the committee, because that's if it doesn't make it, then it's big. It's really important for things to make it or not, depending on how you feel, out of committee.
Yeah, and then there will be, so there's long sessions, short sessions. I'm just thinking about timing. And then there's situations where sometimes nothing will get done because people protest the session, which is something that has been happening with my representative, where Republicans have been boycotting doing their job pretty much. And so when they don't come to work, you have to have a certain number of Democrats and Republicans voting. And if they're just, if one party decides they're not going to do it, then nothing can get passed. And so that happened last year during our short session. And many important funding budget bills did not get passed because they were protesting one bill. So that's another thing that can happen. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Thankfully, that has not happened in Washington State yet. Thank God that hasn't happened in Washington State.
Yeah.
And you will see like a lot of bills get introduced. And some of them I think are more like showy bills that they know don't have a chance, but they introduce it because they want to make a statement. And they know it, like, it can be a wacky bill that nobody's going to vote on. But they're just doing what they want to make a statement. So don't get alarmed sometimes if you see just really out there bills. It doesn't hurt to make your opinion on it heard, but some reps and senators are worse. We're pretty bad about that, and others don't mess with that kind of stuff at all. Fortunately, that guy out in Eastern Washington, whose name I forget right now, but he was super right wing, and he would introduce wacky stuff all the time that would never make it anywhere. He got voted out finally. So
yeah, and so I just want to mention, another thing is that this is just one of many tools in the toolbox. Another is electing the people who will be serving you in the legislature. So do get engaged, though. You are a you're a citizen and or not, but being involved in, if you have representatives, then you are invited and welcomed to get involved and let them know what you think.
And in Washington State, they've made it pretty easy for people to register to vote. They do really encourage involvement. So you will have the right to vote. I don't think you have to be a citizen to vote in Washington State, which is great. So don't be, do get involved. It's a lot. You have a lot more chance to make change on a local level because you have better access to your representatives than on a national level. So that's where I focus a lot of my time during that is on the state level. Do we want to talk about the commission real quick for those that are interested? Since there's
wildlife commission.
Okay. So Steph knows a lot more about this than I do, but I recently started attending these Fish and Wildlife Committee meetings, and the commission members are appointed by the governor, correct, Steph?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So they basically get to decide Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife policy in the state. And in these commission meetings, especially with COVID, that they're virtual, so it's easier for people to attend. And they have I did put a link there on the Fish and Wildlife, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. And they have a list of when the meetings are. You can sign up for updates. I would highly encourage you to sign up for updates because a lot of times I would have no idea when meetings are held unless I signed up for updates. So please, do that. You can look through the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife website. They have committee meetings. They had one today. There's information here about their meetings. And so you can listen in and you can comment. And I comment almost every time I listen to their meetings. And it's a really good way to find out what is going on with wildlife in this state. And I've actually been really impressed, honestly, about how prepared the staff is, because a lot of times in these committee meetings, they'll talk about various topics. Like today, they talked about a fishery area in Willapa Bay, and there was this whole presentation about the fisheries and stuff like that. So you can learn a lot by attending these meetings, and that because everything's virtual now, it's all via Zoom, so it makes it a lot easier for people to listen in. I really hope they'll continue this after people are able to safely meet in person, but it's a wonderful way for people to get educated on what's going on, and then, make your opinion heard. I've heard the commissioners talk over and over again that they feel like public comment is really important, and they listen to public comment. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but they say they care. And we did recently get two new commissioners who seem genuinely interested in protecting wildlife. So Kuntz and Smith. So that's been gratifying. And it can get a little, the meetings can get a bit dry, and it certainly can be frustrating because, unfortunately, currently the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and probably all fish and wildlife departments, part of their job is providing opportunities for hunters and people that fish. And so they may or may not like hunting, but that's part of their mission, unfortunately, at this time, is to provide hunters plenty of chances to go hunt stuff. But it helps to let them know that, you are a person that doesn't engage in these activities, and you would like to see wildlife out in the wild without getting, what are the names of the new,
Got it.
yeah, thanks. It helps to pipe up and make your voice heard, that you don't hunt and that you would like, you care about things too. Just know that will probably be the case for a while anyway. I think it would be, I don't know how their mission would get drastically altered. I think the hunting community would revolt or something, but
Can
anyway.
I bring it back to the legislature real quick?
Yes, please.
So Carol had asked a question that was, aren't the bills from the Washington Fish and Wildlife Commission, aren't they introduced in the legislature for passing? Yes, they are. All bills that are related to wildlife that have legal ramifications, they all have to go through the legislature. And I want to talk about one that's really interesting that's in this session, and it is it's a bizarre ask from the legislature that I've only seen this a couple times before, but basically one of a couple representatives from Northeast Washington are asking for the legislature to ratify, so make it law, that and ask for the department to do a study on the effects of sea lions on salmon. Now, that's bizarre because the commission is the directing decision-making body of the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. So they already have the legal authority to mandate that their department can perform a study. So there's already that legal authority. So why there would be a bill introduced through the legislature that essentially forces the department to do this study, we're not sure. And so we're trying to figure out what that means and why they would be doing that. and we feel like it is, well, we're not sure. So that's another reason why it's really important to find out, you know, what's the tofu of the sandwich, you know, what's the bulk of the bill, and why, you know, why are they doing this? So, oh, awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So that is one of those situations where it could have been because it's so bizarre and unnecessary, it could have been one of those bills that was introduced to prove a point, like Rachel was talking about. And it could be because, you know, there needs to be studies done. We all agree on that, but making a law for a study to be done is just, it's odd. And so we were going to be opposing that bill just because of the absurdity of it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that it didn't pass.
Yeah, and it's for things like that bill, it's kind of helpful to know how absurd it is, because then you don't have to focus a lot of your time and energy on stuff like that, because it'll be recognized for being an absurd bill. You should still contact them, but for other bills that have more of a chance, like the cat and dog retail stuff, or the other bills that we had, like what was I can't read it. Oh, about the horse racing industry and stuff like that. You know, that's worth more of our time to focus on.
So I have a question for all of you. Have any of you contacted your representative before about an issue, and how did it go?
Yeah, I have, and I got some of them. I've gotten letters back from giving me a little bit more information about what they're doing on that particular issue, which was nice. That kind of, I felt like I was heard, and that okay, this is something on their radar, which was really good. And I have had acknowledgement pretty much of every time I've outreached to them.
Not so scary, huh?
No, and you know, I'll send postcards as well. Like I'll send letters, and I'll email. I've left voice messages, sometimes on a machine, sometimes with a staffer. The staffers are, you know, as long as I'm to the point and polite, they're polite back. And yeah, and so my new favorite thing is just sending them postcards. It's just reminding, hey, could you please like support this or not support this? Because I feel like it kind of stands out a little bit from all the other correspondence they get. And I do send thank you cards a lot.
I just got this handy thing from I totally can't remember the name of the publisher right now, but I got this so I could send my representatives, or Microcosm Publishing. It's like cute little things like vote yes, or
Is that all postcards?
Yes, these are all postcards.
Whoa.
So the front.
Where'd you get those?
I got these from Microcosm Publishing. I'll look up the website and I'll post it. So I got this to make it easier for me to remember to send postcards.
Yeah, and I find also, like, if I just get a bunch of postcards and put a stamp on them, like, so I just have like a stack of postcards with stamps on them, and then I kind of, it's right there. And if I think of something, I can just send the postcard.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm all about making it easy.
I was on the Microcosm site for some other reason, and I stumbled across the book of postcards. I was like, oh, I need to get that. There you go. And they have like, I ended up getting a whole bunch of stickers too, like abolish prisons.
Nice.
Yeah, feminist one. Anyway.
Hmm.
And then, you know, like when we don't have a pandemic, NARN has letter writing nights, and I find those helpful because it makes me, I'm not terribly good about writing actual letters. I'm much better at sending emails and stuff like that. But the written letters, you know, having those letter writing nights, it makes me sit there and write out a letter, and I end up, you know, I can write quite a few letters in like half an hour, and then NARN sends them out.
Yeah, and you know what I used to find so helpful about the letter writing parties was the little brief sheets that would get like, hey, this is the issue, you know, this is what we want to say. Here's an example of a letter. Those were so helpful because sometimes you're like, I don't even know what to say. And a lot of the times I didn't even know about the issues, you know, until I got to the letter writing party, and I was like, oh my God, you know, this is really important.
Yeah. Oops, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm glad that, Lauren, I'm glad you found him helpful.
Yeah, it'll be really nice to get back to in-person meetings
Totally.
again. What's that?
And you know, as an introvert, it was really super nice to just be able to go and be quiet with a bunch of activists and like all be doing the same thing, like a co-working thing. It felt like, you know, there's solidarity, but I'm not having to be out on a street corner accosting strangers. You know, it was really nice to be able to feed my introvert and do good at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, being able to participate in lobby days where, you know, there's a bunch of people who are with you, and you know, they all feel passionately about the issues that you care about, and you know, just being with people is always it's always really nice to do. I know the virtual ones can be not as I don't know, there's not as much, it doesn't feel like there's as much solidarity because you're not in person, but you know, I think that people have really tried to make them as I don't know, as a way to connect as much as possible. I unfortunately did not make it to the Posados lobby day. I'm wondering if anybody else was able to make it to that. And I'm wondering how it went.
Did Posados have one?
Yeah, it was Posados, HSUS, and
Oh,
dealing out Benji.
Yeah, I wasn't able
forgot.
to make that.
I honestly, I forgot about that one. I'm ashamed to say. But oh, and then one of the other things I discovered is on the Washington State Legislature, when bills go into committee, and it's too late for this year, but you can testify virtually, and you don't even have to like, you can just make your position noted. And that's what I did on some of the bills when they made it to committee, because I didn't want to talk. So I was able to just, you know, note my position was opposed or supportive, and that was really all I had to do. And so the committee actually does note how many people have logged on as supporting and how many are opposed.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I didn't know about that until this year, and I don't know if they do that regularly or not, but I listened in on the committee hearing about the retail sale of cats and dogs, and they said we have X number of people voting, you know, that have registered opposed, and X number of people registered against. And then they were talking about some other bill at that same committee hearing, and they also said this number of people have registered as for, this many against, kind of thing.
Whoa, interesting.
Yeah. So you can testify without actually opening your mouth.
I love that.
Yes. And you can submit written comments too. So you don't have to like talk in front of an entire committee. You can just send something in, or like I said, you can just click a button and say that whether you're opposed or not. or, supportive or whatever.
Does it, in any kind of the testifying, whether it's in person or on Zoom, do they ever get argumentative to the person who's witnessing, or have you ever seen that, where they start cross-examining you about, well, why do you believe that, or something like that?
I have limited experience. I think Steph could speak to that more. The times that I have participated in actual testifying before committees, they don't ask questions. They may ask like a question, but pretty much they want to get through the testimony and then move on. So they're not going to engage the person testifying. But that's just been my experience. I think, Steph, you've had more experience than I have testifying before the legislature.
Yeah. They may question you if they have specifics about something that you said, like a fact, or a like a fact that you cited, or they may ask a clarifying question, but it's really uncouth to yell at your constituents. So oftentimes you won't see that. Another tactic that you can take, and we've mentioned it multiple times throughout this presentation, is by speaking from your personal experience, because they can't argue with that. If you have a story that has formed your opinion, or an experience that's formed your opinion, there's nothing, you can't argue against that. So that's another reason why we say, you can come up with a bunch of facts and talking points and whatever, but if you make it personal, then there's not a lot they can push back on that. But yeah, largely no, they don't get argumentative.
Yeah. And neither does the commissioners. They may, I would imagine, if they don't agree with you, they can say something behind closed doors, but the commissioners, when they're listening to public comment, they basically like, okay, thank you, and that's it.
I also think that they treat lobbyists differently than they treat constituents. If they know that, somebody is getting paid to be there, to say the things that they're getting paid to say, they might push back on that a bit. That's pretty much the only time I've seen it. But they treat their constituents differently, and that I think they're really appreciative that people take the time to engage in the process. I think that they recognize that you're taking time out of your day, oftentimes taking time off work, because you care, not because you're getting paid, not because your boss told you to say this thing because it benefits your business or something. It's because you care. And I think that they really do recognize that, and they try to bring people in to participate more, as opposed to try to exclude people.
Yeah, that's been my experience too.
Do any of you know, do lobbyists have a special access in a certain location? Or, because you were just referring to, it seemed like lobbyists talking to the politicians like the general public does, like you and me. But does anybody know, do they have like a special time and place to talk with them?
I don't think so. They just have more time on their hands. I mean, that's their job, is to reach out. So they are able to like constantly contact a representative and ask for an in-person meeting. And, they have all of their, like, they have fact sheets, like Steph mentioned. It has not been my experience that they have special access. They just have more time to talk to particular, representatives or senators, but
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I mean, one of the images in my head was the proverbial lobbyist flagging down a politician in the hallway. I mean, that might be more in the, in the federal area, in the DC area, but
I think it's different in DC. Yeah, I think I can't really speak to how things operate in DC, and they may have special access in DC. They could like find him at a bar or something like that. I don't know. But I have not found that to be the case. It's just, it's just that the lobbyists have extra incentive and the time to focus on particular bills. And they can really go after a person if they feel like having that person's vote is hugely important. But I agree with Steph, is that they do want to hear from the constituents. They want their constituents to be engaged. And so it really never hurts to reach out. I am so glad that I had started getting involved a couple of years ago and taking the time to make my voice heard to my representatives, because I found that, I do feel heard even if they don't respond to my emails right away. And it's the Washington State Legislature website, as I've mentioned, makes it pretty easy to make your voice heard and for you to contact your reps. So check out the website, make use of it, comment on bills, email your rep, sign up for their newsletters. Changing laws is a huge way for us to help animals. The ban on exotic animal ownership had a huge impact in Washington State. Except for the people that were grandfathered in by the bill, you cannot own a lot of or keep, unless you're like a sanctuary or something. There are not these private owners of cougars and bears and stuff like that. And in places like Texas, you can have whatever on your property, and so it really does make a big difference. And the current bill about the retail sale of cats and dogs, even though that bill has gotten significantly watered down, it will still help you. If that bill passes, it will prevent new businesses from opening up and selling cats and dogs, and that will matter to cats and dogs. So it's changing the law can make a really big difference for the environment and animals.
Well said. So with that, are there any other questions?
Just curious. I've only sent emails so far, but when COVID was not a thing, well, actually what I'm curious about is, even during COVID, is it only online? Is it only on Zoom meetings still, or is there anything in person that is going on? And was it mostly on just via email or letters before, or did you have a lot of personal interactions?
Right now, it's only online and virtually. Prior to that, I did have personal interactions, but I was not able to go down to Olympia for the most part. And so my personal interactions with my representatives were limited to when they had any kind of event that the public could go to. I could have requested meetings with them, but I didn't. I would just wait for these public meetings to happen. And basically what I'm not an introvert, but I also didn't want to spend a lot of time with a bunch of other people. So I would go there, listen to their spiel, and then I'd go find one of the aides and then tell them what I wanted to say, and then I'd leave. I didn't want to hang out. But that's an opportunity to have some FaceTime. And then you don't have to travel to Olympia. Other states don't have to. It's just can be time consuming to go to Olympia.
Yeah.
So I really hope that after it's safe for people to meet in person, that they continue to have the you know, stuff that happens in Olympia available for people to attend virtually, because it allows for a lot more participation.
Mhm. Thanks.
Yeah, I've organized a couple lobby days myself, focused on a variety of issues. And I would say that lobby days are really awesome because you get a lot of engagement going on all at once. And then, if you're, some tips for lobby days are, oftentimes people will wear the same color t-shirt or will have some kind of identifier. So it shows, that everyone who's wearing this green shirt is here to talk about, clean energy or something like that. So, that everyone knows why you're there. It's also a really good way to have to get a bunch of people together to do a photo op. I think, as you saw before, we showed a picture that had, hundreds of people all standing together, and then they use those photo ops for media releases to talk about the issue and show, hundreds of people were at the Capitol talking about this issue yesterday. You still have time to make your voice heard, et cetera, et cetera. I love the in-person lobby days. It really helps me feel like I'm a part of the process. Being in the Capitol is, it's, I don't know, it kind of feels like you're being a part of history in the making. But that said, I agree with Rachel in that moving everything virtually has allowed a lot more participation from people across the state. So I would just say, like, if you do have the opportunity to participate in a lobby day in the future, safely, like, do it, because it's interesting to participate in at least once and just see what the process is like. um yeah, hopefully, I hope we get back to those days soon.
I hope we have a hybrid, because I
Yeah.
have participated in 2 different lobby days a while ago, and I agree, Steph, I really like them. I just also really appreciate the opportunity to be able to, like, attend via Zoom and have,
Mhm.
because it is time consuming to go to Olympia. So if you can, do it. But I just really hope that after this is all over, that the Fish and Wildlife commissioners still allow for virtual attendance. I really hope that the legislature allows for virtual attendance. You can, I think it will probably be still possible to have a meeting with your representative, like maybe you can have a phone call. I can't see why a representative wouldn't want to still try to have virtual meetings with constituents, even after this is all over. It would seem like, I mean, it's easier for them, for sure. So if you are not able to meet with people in person for whatever reason, we have this technology that allows us for virtual meetings. So let's hope it continues.
Yeah, and the whole reason that we even started electing people to office is because we all have lives, and we can't always be there all the time. So that's why we elect people to take our best interests to Salem and do the work for us. So yeah, with that said, I think maybe if there's no other questions, we will wrap up. But I will send out to all of you who registered a fact sheet kind of that goes over all of this information that we've shared, the kind of a 101 on how to lobby your representatives, just so that you have it. And then we'll follow up to, we send out, if you're not on our email list yet, we send out regular newsletters that have information about the bills and the various things we're working on. So do get signed up to that. If you'd like to, you can do that on our website. Yeah. Oh, happy World Polar Bear Day. Aw, that's awesome. Okay, and with that,
Well, I'm gonna
Oh,
throw
go
up a
ahead.
link for our newsletter. Hold on a second.
oh,
to sign
thank
up.
you. Thank you, thank you.
And then if people do have like follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm just gonna put it's just info@narn.org, and I'm finding the newsletter sign up link. Hold on. Where'd it go?
And also on our webpage, narn.org, we have an action alert section that has, you can take action on some of these bills. We have it set up where you can go click on it and then write in your own personal testimony and send it off.
All right, and here's a link to our newsletter. And we send this out every 2 weeks and try to make them informative.
Yeah, so
Give action
definitely if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us. And otherwise we'll keep you posted on stuff.
Yeah. Thanks everybody. I really appreciate everybody's participation.
Well,
Thank
all.
you both. Yeah,
Super helpful.
same.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good evening, and go check out the Washington Legislature website if you haven't yet.
Will do.
Okay, good
Bye.
night.
Good
Bye
night.
everybody.